the ending to that conversation is perfect to segue into our next guest, who is another independent journalist who has been such an amazing supporter of Julian Assange, who has never given up speaking about injustice of all kinds, and has been an incredible inspiration to other independent journalists. And I'm, of course, speaking about Caitlin Johnstone. The incredible Caitlin Johnstone is here with us now. Welcome, Caitlin. You're here. Hi. So great to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing this. You guys have done such a wonderful job. It's been so good. Like, you know, I really feel like it's it makes a community of us, which is another great thing. It's horrible that we have to do this, and that we're 2 months in now, is it? That Julian has, you know, been separated from the world, you know, in virtual isolation. But it's also a good thing that we're talking, and that we're creating this kind of community, and that we're reassuring each other that what we're seeing is really as pernicious as it seems to be.
Absolutely. No, and I'm so grateful for all of the panelists, including yourself, who've taken the time to be part of this effort. And it's been really inspiring to see, you know, all of these different views and backgrounds represented in just defying the ideological separation that is so deep and so divisive nowadays in order to support Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. So that's...
Well, isn't that great? Yeah.
Yeah. But I was wondering, so what do you think? I know that you've been covering a number of really important topics lately, like the Skripal case, and a number of, you know, just issues that you've been really, really keen on covering. But what are your thoughts on the recent developments, basically since the first vigil? Because you did obviously participate in that first vigil. What are your thoughts on the events since then, since the last time that we all spoke on this stream?
Well, I can't help but notice, but they silenced him, and the propaganda machine really started to hit its straps. Some really weird stuff has been happening, and we haven't had Julian's voice, or because WikiLeaks it's a huge publication. It goes back, you know, there's so many things, and to have him there, you know, like pointing us to the relevant WikiLeaks when it's been a real loss. And also to have his kind of philosophical position. He's a great thinker, and he really does have like a fantastic knowledge of the landscape of what we're looking at, this inverted totalitarianism, you know, that isn't obvious. It's not like there's no tanks in the street, but it's totalitarianism with a guy smiley face, you know, and he's really good at showing the different outlines of where power sits and how it works. So yeah, I feel it's incredibly disappointing, but also, probably not a coincidence that we've had in the past 2 months, you know, the Skripal case, but also Babchenko just recently. There's one thing after another of just like weird propaganda.
Yeah,
and that's what the Sun does, you know. He shines a light on propaganda. That's basically, he's just a weapon to open up the cracks of the propaganda machine. If you control the narrative, you control the world, which is why they hate Julian Assange, because he is constantly throwing shade on their narratives, and that's why he's so important.
Absolutely. And it's incredible the effectiveness that he has shown in all of those areas. But I have read your reporting on the Skripal issue, and I noticed what you're describing about the ridiculous level of propaganda. I remember that you wrote that they have changed the narrative itself. Like, so many times they've changed the story. I cannot imagine the different ways that Julian would be ripping that to shreds right now if he could speak about it. You know?
Yeah.
So,
I'm mocking it, you know, mocking
yeah.
it. I think that's important. Like, you know, my vibe is that this will all fall apart with not a gunshot, but a giggle. And the Skripal case is just a farce. It's just a Monty Python-esque bullshit. I mean, you could almost imagine Mr. Bean being, you know, at the center of the involvement of it. It's just so ridiculous. But Yeah, and I think that's why, like I was just watching you with Lee Camp before, and Jimmy Dore and comedians, etc., throwing that mockery upon these farcical narratives that we're expected to believe. Like, we're expected to sit there and go, oh yes, very serious. Oh, the deadly Novichok was in the cereal. No, it wasn't in the cereal. No, it was on the car door now. No, it's not on the car door. Yeah, no. It was on the front door. No, it was in the vent. It was in the vent. Because these stories kept falling apart every day. But we all, and there were people just sitting there nodding along, pretending like this was real and serious, and and ever since then, on the royal wedding, they released Sergei. He so that where everyone else is, talking about her Meghan Markle's dress, but they quietly released him, and it is just, he would have a lot of fun, I'm sure. So that's disappointing. The thing is, he doesn't even probably know that these things are going on. And I think that's a horrible, injustice as well, that he's not here following along what's going on. He's 2 months behind in the news stream, and that's for someone like him who has devoted his life to understanding these narratives and how they bolster power. It's that's one of the many crimes that's being committed right now, is that he's being taken away access from his his vocation, his life purpose. He's a very important person to humanity, and I think at some point, we're going to collectively realize that, and I hope it's not in the too far future, but he will be thought of as a Nelson Mandela. And
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and that will be it will say something about us as humans, as individual humans, where we stood in this, and how gullible we are, and how suggestible we are to the mainstream media narratives, and how easily led we can be by the nose, like all this, oh, he's a rapist, I don't know, someone told me that in the pub, I'm pretty sure, it's showing us up as humans, and he is showing up, he is, proving his thesis just by existing. Julian Assange wouldn't exist if the democracy that we purport to be under was as free and, as transparent as we're led to believe. He wouldn't need to exist. His publications, they would be redundant. No one would want to read them because we would have an open and transparent government. We would know what's going on. There would be nothing to leak. His very existence proves his thesis. And the way that he has been persecuted, just shows up more and more how deeply evil these fuckers are, and how much they will protect their power structures, and how much they consider the narrative the power structure that they need to protect, and they will do so to great lengths, and look very vicious while doing it. Risk being found out, because all this is just being held together by propaganda as well. The reason that people aren't standing up in arms against Julian Assange is that they've there's these low-key smears that are often about whether or not, he's a good house guest, whether or not he cleans up after himself or whatever. You're allowed to, detain someone for 7 years because he doesn't pick up his socks. This is the level. We don't even have any delineations. We don't judge things anymore. We just oh, well, I hear he's a bit smelly or whatever. That's not a reason to detain someone for 7 years. That's not a reason, okay? So yeah, but that's the way that they they massage these narratives, so that people just kind of oh, well, maybe he's not the hero that everyone thought he was, or whatever. Well, it doesn't matter. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to torture people. In a free society, we shouldn't be allowed to silence someone simply for telling the truth. That is wrong. That's absolutely wrong. And I don't care what you think about his personal hygiene.
Exactly. Well, and that's the level. And when we just mentioned earlier the role of comedians in exposing so much of this effectively, you're completely right in saying that that's this level of propaganda, the propaganda narratives about personal hygiene, these ridiculous smears, they really only belong in comedy in some ways. I mean, it's almost impossible to address them without laughing and making it into a joke. So that makes a lot of sense in that way. But I was wondering about your recent article that you wrote on Moreno basically punishing Julian Assange for doing his job as a journalist. And I was wondering if you could speak about that to our audience a little bit, for any of them who haven't read your piece, about what you covered in that article.
Right. So Lenin Moreno, he's the president of Ecuador, and he's been involved very much in these discussions about whether or not Assange should have internet access. We've been told that it was because of his tweet about the Catalonian incident.
Yes.
Because he was very, very strongly pro their independence, and so that of course plays into the Ecuador has a history of Spanish colonialism, etc. So there would be ties there, I guess, to the Western Empire. Lin Moreno was. He was voted in on the idea. He was the guy that we were all, cheering for, because we thought he was going to be the one who was going to protect Assange. There was another guy who was like, oh, we're going to kick him out. So we're all excited when he got in. But there has been a lot of pressure. There's, the Venezuelan example must be playing on his mind. There have been envoys to Quito, the capital there, to get the US a military station up and running again, because that had been dismantled, and they've been successful on that. I just think he's under a lot of pressure. So I don't actually blame him. I still blame the Western Empire for putting that pressure on him. Like, how ridiculous! Just stop it. Like, just get better at stop hiding from us, stop telling us lies all the time, and start acting like the thing that you pretend you're going to be, and then you wouldn't have to hide Julian Assange in a closet. Like, we would just be better people. So Moreno, he's stated that Assange has three choices, basically. He can remain as he is, without internet access, so basically silenced. He can shut up. He can have internet access, but he's not allowed to speak about political things. He's not actually allowed to do journalism. He's not allowed to be Julian Assange. He I guess, retweet lolcats or something. I'm not sure what they think he's going to do. Like, that's the thing he is. That's his interest. That's what he is. So basically, he can have internet access, but he has to shut up as well. Or he steps outside the embassy, and we know from the actions and, from the clues that they will whisk him away, extradite him to the US, and we will not see him again. So they will shut him up. So he's got three choices there. He can either be quiet, or be quiet. So we're in a really dodgy position right now. It's touch and go. We need a miracle, really. Or we need to, demand that the Australian government step up. Would be great. That would be really fantastic. And take back their guy, or our guy. Well, I know that from the Freedom of Information Act docs that Kelly Tranter, the old WikiLeaks lawyer, got, that the Australian government it's been very obtuse about how it speaks about Julian Assange. It never really makes a statement about whether we support him or not, or whatever. So that it's been very hard to understand, like, what exactly they have against him and why they don't do anything. And it seems like internally the government has decided that, did decide that the Swedish charges, it would be an interruption of the Sweden's sovereignty to intercede when there were still charges from Sweden. But of course, they've since been dropped. So there's no reason at all for the Australian government not to step in at this point. And Greg Barnes made that point, the Sydney Morning Herald, a couple of days ago, which and he was on the Vigil, wasn't he? So
yeah, we were privileged enough to have him speak and say exactly that, and discuss that issue about the lack of support from the Australian government. But he also was speaking about, or we asked him a little bit about the activism that is happening in Australia. I know that WikiLeaks, and I believe it was the World Socialist website that reported it, that there was a lot of youth organizations that were doing demonstrations in support of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. So that was at least one encouraging piece of news to see that. But obviously it has to be stepped up a lot more to be effective. Do you see that happen in Australia? Do you think that in Australia there is an impetus in the public to support Julian right now, or have they forgotten him in some way?
Honestly, no. It feels very, very quiet here. And like people really don't know what to do or say about it, because it says very bad things about us as a country and about our sovereignty and about our, our backbone. People just don't want to talk about it, So even when I bring it up or whatever, they don't want to talk about it. There's going to be a rally in a couple of weeks' time in Melbourne that I'll be at. But yeah, I think, we've known for a long time, Australians have known that we're just basically a vassal state of the US. And it's embarrassing. And we don't seem to be able to do anything about it. The Iraq War was like a huge embarrassment, I think, to Australians. I was one of the almost 1 million people, I think, marched in Australia against the Iraq War. It was like 400,000 or something in Melbourne. And it was a huge, huge, huge backlash against that. But we couldn't do anything about it. They just marched us along with the US anyway. So when these topics come up, we're getting less and less vocal about it, I guess, but also it's just hugely embarrassing to have an Australian citizen be persecuted like that with no backlash from our government, no statements, just silence, embarrassed silence. It's awful.
And the deletion of his passport too. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible they would go to that length as well. But given that kind of like apathy that you're describing in the just the cultural milieu of Australia right now, I want to ask, what led you to become such an amazing, incredible voice for independent thought? Like what encouraged you to step outside the box in your reporting as a journalist, rather than just taking the safe option that so many journalists take and just taking a check and speaking the script that you're given, et cetera, et cetera? What was, I guess, the light switch that flicked for you to put you on the path that brought you to where you are today with your independent journalism?
Well, I did my degree back in 2000, and a lot of journalism degree graduates, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to do anything. I was probably going to spend a couple of years regurgitating AP, and then if I was lucky, maybe 20 years down the track, I might be able to do something. It just seemed like a dead-end job, and that if it was obvious from that point that you don't make a lot of money. The way to make money is to just be like a mouthpiece for the establishment, which is obviously not what I wanted to do. And I'd rather do anything but that, anything. I didn't want to use my talents in the service of empire, I'd rather do marketing or anything else, So yeah, I didn't go into journalism after my degree. I had 2 little kids as well, and it just didn't seem like the opportunities that I believed were there when I started my degree were actually viable. So, what are we? 20 years nearly on, 18 years now, and my kids are grown, and there is this biological impulse, I think, that a lot of people feel, whether or not they're journalists, comedians, whatever, that we need to do something now about where we're at, this corporatocracy, the capitalism, the way that we are as a species right now is not sustainable. We have these systems in place that are leading us to our own extinction, and we need to do something about that. So there was this kind of perfect storm for me where it became possible to become an independent journalist. Like, you didn't have to go into a regular newspaper or TV or whatever, radio. You could just start. I got a little gig at Inquisitor, and and I went from there. And I found, like, I was just writing kind of general reportage or whatever and doing these opinion pieces that were getting a lot of traction. And when they asked me not to do so many opinion pieces and to be so strident in my views, I decided to take the leap, because why not? Like, I'd rather write what I want to write and have a day job as well. If it comes down to that, I'll go and work in Macca's, like, if that's what has to happen. But I really think we need to do something here. And that's what, I think Julian Assange is kind of a lightning rod for that as well. He's the lightning rod for the assholes, but he's also been a lightning rod for those who see that something needs to be done. And the greatest weapon we have is attacking the propaganda machine that keeps everything in place. The whole thing is just a giant narrative. And that if we believe it, then we just keep going along. We keep sucking on the same teat. And, it's the resources of our planet are going to run out, or we're going to blow ourselves up. One of the two is going to happen at some point. And yeah, we really need to step up and start throwing some shade on those narratives and getting people to see what's really going on.
Absolutely. And from the beginning of your kind of venture into independent journalism, you've consistently covered WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. And as a massive fan of yours, I remember when you made the announcement that you were jumping into independent journalism as opposed to writing for Inquisitor. And I think that type of courage that you've shown as an independent journalist has inspired other people to become their own journalists as well. And I think that's something you've advocated as something people should do in your articles. So I didn't know if you wanted to speak on that and how people can use that at a small level to help Julian Assange and WikiLeaks right now.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely think that that's where it's at, and I was so pleased to see you really take on that as well. Like, this is, it's really exciting to me how many diverse voices we have and how that's growing. And I really love it when on Facebook or whatever, someone will say to me, I think it's about time I started writing, which is just fantastic. And I just really want people to know that we can do this, and that it's and that we must do this. And like I heard Lee Camp say before, it might sound like earnest and sincere, and it's not very cool, to want to change the world, but we actually have to want to change the world, like, in order to do that. And it's okay. I don't know if we can make it cool, but let's just do it. Let's just do it because we can. And there's this learned hopelessness, I think, amongst lefties especially, that we're just inert, and that I attacked that a lot during the Bernie campaign. Like, there was this kind of, but he's not going to get it. He's not going to get it.
Unicorns.
He didn't get it. Yeah, he didn't get it. But you don't get anywhere if you don't hit all the way through. There's no point, they've won if you just lay down and die already, if you just curl up into a ball. Like, they have won. So, yeah, get up and start fighting. And I know that people, find it, it's difficult. Like, Twitter will shut you down, Facebook, etc. Like, you know, you'll get 2 likes, of the same 2 people that you always get the same likes from or whatever. But you don't know how many people are viewing that, how many screens that has gone across, and just how much of an impact you're having day after day. Just keep at it, like, and keep finding different angles to say it. Keep pushing your creativity towards it, your artistry towards it. Find different metaphors to show what's going on, and just get creative. And it is all making a difference. I swear to God, it's making a difference. So, and I think also, like, I saw, I can't remember, maybe it was Nico or Kireko. Oh, yeah, that writing letters helps a lot.
Yes.
John
Kiraku and Kieran. I was going to say John Kiraku and Kieran O'Reilly both emphasized that, and they had both had their they both spoke from their experiences of being imprisoned, and so that was a major subject that we've talked about. And please, if you have any thoughts on that, that would be fantastic to hear about them, about the power of just writing a letter to Julian and what that can do.
Yeah, sit down, write a letter, post it. Take a screen, like, take a photo of it, put it on your Facebook, put it on your Twitter, just get the information to those in power. And it's not like they're not getting lobbied by people like us. There's no lobbying group for us. We are our own lobbying group. So be your own lobbying group. There's a organisation in Australia called Get Up, which is a progressive lobbying group or whatever. We can be kind of an ad hoc Get Up sort of group where you just take your initiative, write the letters and stuff, get a conversation going, get on the phone. We all know that actually does make a difference, because, the squeaky wheel does get the grease, like, in the end. And people will know that not only are you trying to talk to them, but you're talking to their constituents. You're in their voting pool, and it's important for them to at least look like they've listened. And over time, that starts to work into their narrative as well. So writing letters is a really good way of doing things.
Absolutely. Yes, that's really effective. I mean, it's surprising the way that a simple cat meme can spread like wildfire and really take an actually really important, serious message to so many people. But
right.
Absolutely. And I really liked the fact that you just pointed out how the way in which we have to be our own advocates, because there's nobody speaking for us, lobbying for us. But WikiLeaks and Julian Assange is like the most unique organization an individual who does speak and advocate for everyone and protect us from the harms of our own government, or maybe not protect us, but reveal those harms to us. And so in that way, they are really a last bastion of truth for the public. And I don't know if you just wanted to expound a little bit on the importance of WikiLeaks and the importance of Julian Assange's work for the public interest, as opposed to this machine that we all know is against them.
Right. Well, it's not just important for us as the readers who are reading this stuff. It's also important for people who are working in these institutions and seeing what's going on and thinking, holy fucking shit, someone needs to do something. We can't keep doing this. This is terrible. And it gives them a place to go that is secure, where they can leak documents and alert humanity to the evil that is being done behind closed doors, and we then have a chance to do something about it. But as citizens who are working in these places, it's also incredibly important to know that you can leak and get attention on this stuff and not put yourself in danger. WikiLeaks is a really great record of protecting its sources and verifying the data as well. It's fantastic. I can't state how important it has been. It has been at the behind every important move towards light that I know of since its inception. You know, there's a WikiLeaks for everything, and you know, it's basically really rattling the cages of those who are, like, you know, in power, but also those who are asleep and not understanding how their daily lives are being sabotaged by these you know, insane plutocrats who will just suck the resources from the world and put us all on edge, you know, with their war propaganda, but also, like, you know, with just sabotaging our progress as a species to be able to do something about, you know, the big issues of our time. We can't do anything because we don't have a voice anymore. Our vote literally doesn't mean anything when money equals power. So yeah, they're so important. I think they're so important, and they're really worth fighting for. And I think that history will bear us out on that.
I couldn't agree more. I think that is absolutely correct. Unless it's to idolize him in a sanitized sense, which seems to happen to all of the figures like Martin Luther King and other amazing, you know, activists whose history is altered so that the establishment isn't offended by their message. And so I hope that no matter what the outcome is with Julian Assange, that isn't allowed to happen either.
Oh, yeah, you're so true about that. Like, Martin Luther King would be, I mean, yeah, the things that are sold in his name are just makes you sick. It really does. Like, for a man that was, you know, persecuted by the FBI, and then for the FBI to turn around and use his words, like, as some sort of selling point, like, oh, it grosses me out. It's so disgusting. Like, oh, get off him. Like, no, go away. Like, you know, they did everything they could to silence that great man. And yeah, for them to try and use him, that's just, how evil do you have to be? Anyway,
Yeah, really.
So you're right. They will. They're masters at this narrative switch. That suddenly, Assange will be allowed to be a hero, like, you know, but only in the way that sells cars.
Exactly. They take the face off of these amazing activists and they put them on the same machine those activists were fighting against. It's just the most evil. It's like the reproduction of these amazing human beings as, like, sellable objects that they can just use at their disposal. What do you think is are some of the points that are not talked about enough about WikiLeaks and Julian Assange? And, you know, whether it's about the impact of their work or about the extremity of the way that they are abused by government and by state, you know, the unelected power structure that sort of rules the planet through the US. What do you think is not spoken about, either in independent media or in legacy media these days, about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks?
Well, I mean, their importance in bringing light to the vampires, you know, has what I try to talk about a lot, as much as I possibly can, is the propaganda around Julian Assange, and how that plays into it. You know, he's being abused by the weapon that he is trying to destroy, and yeah. So, but that works into the brainwashing of us as, like, you know, of the way that psyops work on humans. And that's where it can, you know, the hopelessness can set in when your friends and family are just repeating the "he can leave whenever he wants, he can leave whenever he wants, he can leave whenever he wants" line, or whatever they you know, propagating at the time. There's this cognitive dissonance that people have. You know, they don't want to know exactly the danger that we're in, and that you know, that there is no one in charge here that we can trust. There is no one who has our best interests in mind. There are only people who are very self-interested in charge, and, you know, their whole they're so stupid, like, and they don't even care. They just think, oh, well, I'll just fly to Mars. If it gets too bad, I'll just go to Mars. That's their whole solution for everything, all these rich assholes. So, yeah, the cognitive dissonance that comes in, I think, when people try and keep those thoughts segmented from who Julian Assange is and what his actions show him to be. When you zoom out and see what is happening to Julian Assange, he is being held silent in a small room. He's jailed, basically, by extremely powerful people. And that's the fact of what is happening. Everything else is just story over that, overloading that. If you can get people to see the actions of what is happening aside from the narratives that they're being fed, then they may be able to break through that cognitive dissonance and see what's really going on. And so that's something that I kind of push a lot at. There was a detective, Caroline Good, who said some awful things to Julian's mother about him. Now, she was a detective in the UK. She's now retired, but she was involved in the Snowden case. She was also involved in getting Glenn Greenwald's husband nabbed on those awful anti-terrorism laws. They took his stuff off him. I don't know if you remember that. She was behind a lot of those things. And then she goes on Twitter. In one tweet, she's talking about how how vile people are and how poisonous the dialogue is and how we need to be compassionate towards each other and how that compassion is the only way that we're going to see our way through this. She says that in one tweet. Basically, the next tweet, she's at Julian Assange's mum talking about what a smelly boy he is. So, being this, how did you let him be the smelly boy in class or something like that? This really vicious, poisonous, just prod at his mother, which belied everything that she had just said in her previous tweet. And that's what I think I would like people to kind of find where that is in themselves, where they're keeping that separated from themselves, that their actions are separate from what they would like their words to be, what the story about themselves is. I think we can all find that in ourselves as well.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a gap between everyone's sense of who they are and the actual reality of who they are. I think that's really common for most people, but it's definitely important that we address that and make sure that we are sort of walking our talk. I just want to take a moment. You mentioned the viciousness of the attacks against Julian Assange, and I think that that's a great segue into some news I have for you all about the current status of the website. The unity4j.com website is down right now. We are not sure exactly what happened. One tweet from an anonymous account has claimed responsibility for taking the site down, which is really sad and pretty pathetic to see. Our tech people are working really hard on restoring the site, and I just want to ask you if you could please use the YouTube watch link, the stream link, when you share Unity4j tweets. Use the hashtag Unity4j and keep tweeting and retweeting the watch link, and I will let you know as soon as the site is back up and running. And I think, Caitlin, that this goes to exactly, and I also want to add, before I go back to you though, that Susie mentioned last night that we were having some censorship issues on Twitter, that the Unity4j actual handle, the Twitter account, was being censored, shadow banned, and the hashtag, of course, was completely suppressed. So I think that all of this goes to what you were just saying about the viciousness of these attacks against anyone. It doesn't matter if it's Julian Assange's mother, the brilliant, amazing Christine Assange. It doesn't matter if it's just a supportive, unified group of people from a diverse set of backgrounds that are just coming together to be positive and support WikiLeaks. Regardless, you get attacked and you get, smeared in some way or another. So I think that is such a constant with anyone who supports WikiLeaks.
And it belies their thesis, doesn't it? Oh, look, yeah, we don't care. He's a free democracy. He can leave whenever he wants. He can leave whenever he wants. And yet you are so viciously attacked if you ever even try to support him. Like, excuse me, your actions are belying your real intentions there. They put so much energy, so much money and effort into silencing not just him, but the people who support him. And so what's going on there? Why would you do that? Oh, you don't really care? You know, I call triggered. You are bloody triggered. And they just throw everything that they have. So every time they do that, they are proving Julian Assange's thesis correct. They are absolutely proving it. And they can't even help themselves. They just keep doing it anyway. So yeah, I'm really sad about the website, but it is not surprising. My own website is down right now.
That is so typical, and it would go down right as we're speaking to you, of course. I think that this is really an indication that not only that WikiLeaks is so effective and Julian Assange is obviously such an effective voice that he's been silenced, but I think it reflects on us as this vigil and as this stream continues, doing the right thing, and that, you know, in some weird way, like you said, it's like validation that you're on the right track. And it really, I hope that what people take from this type of censorship and attack is that, yes, guys, we're doing the right thing. Let's do it more. Like, let's get more into it and work harder and keep doing more of exactly what we're doing, because obviously it's correct when we receive attacks like that. That's the only way I can see to deal with that type of censorship and attack as a result of supporting WikiLeaks.
Yeah, in some ways, I think that doing real journalism is a game of hot or colder. And, you know, the closer you get to the target, the more flack you will take. So goes the adage. It's absolutely true. Like, you know, like, that's absolutely true. Like, I know, like, that I'm onto something when something gets, especially when it's particularly surprising, and you're like, why don't you want me to talk about that? That's when you should be talking more about it. That's always my flag to just take one more step forward and see whether I get the same reaction or worse. I think it's a really good sign that we're absolutely doing something real here. And I implore everyone just to go ahead and do something real. We're on the right track here. This is where we need to be. We need to be, you know, if we can get Julian Assange out, that will be a great win for humanity as a species, and it will be a liberation for us as well. So I really believe that, you know, he's that important, and what he represents is that important. He is the man of the times, I think.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more on the sense that humanity would benefit as a complete whole from Julian Assange being not only reconnected to the outside world, but freed. And that's definitely the spirit we're trying to bring to this vigil, is that this is not about, and as you are saying, it's not about, you know, what side of politics you're on in the US. It's not about the side of politics that you're on in the UK or the EU. This is about humanity as a whole, you know, praise it, you know, are appreciating truth above ideology. And obviously WikiLeaks and Julian Assange are the biggest truth tellers on the planet right now. And so that goes exactly to what you're talking about the benefit to all of us when they are supported and when they win in their fight against the establishment. We've got about 10 minutes or so left in the segment. What do you think people should know, either about your you know, ongoing efforts for Julian Assange, what they should do going forward, or any other thoughts that you feel like we haven't covered that you wanted to talk about during the stream?
Well, just to your point about political, you know, I think it's been very interesting, and that WikiLeaks has kind of shaken people loose. That those of us who are really interested in just the truth, whether or not it backs our guy or our woman or whatever, who, you know, don't care, like, if the lies come undone and it turns out that that your tribe was at fault or whatever, I don't care about that. I just want the truth, you know. And that's the way that WikiLeaks is, by, you know, they were championed by the left, but as soon as they started attacking, you know, as soon as the leaks came out and made the left look not so good, you start to see who is self-interested and not who is higher interested. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's a bitter pill to swallow. I get it. Like, you know, you've loved someone, you know, like I think we've all had a little love affair with Obama at some point, like, you know, and then to find out that he's this gruesome bloody animal that he's just, you know, at the depths of he's doing exactly what they've all done. Bush, and, you know, Clinton, etc., where they go before him. So, yeah, just to find out who Obama represents and who he was working for was devastating, I think. I mean, it was devastating to me, because I really had a lot of hope and that he was going to be the guy who was going to turn this all around for us. So, yeah, I get it, but we've got to kind of allow this we really do have to get to push forward towards truth, and that's what WikiLeaks does. It reveals the truth about all of our institutions, and the propaganda falls, and those, you know, the tribalness falls. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for being with us. We have a few minutes left. We're not done yet. So I'm going to look through chat and see what the response is like from our audience members who I hope will have some questions for you. I really enjoy it when the audience has questions for our guests, and they haven't really much today, but I'm gonna keep prodding them about it until they ask some questions. So I'm gonna look through right now to see what we have. And also, as I do that, I'm also I've become aware that in connection with the site going down, apparently it looks like a number of our panelists have also been doxxed today. It was just completely disgusting and devastating for them, and I think that really it shows again what Caitlin was just talking about as far as the viciousness of the opposition towards any support for Julian Assange. It's just absolutely. It just reveals their own nature more than anything about this vigil itself.
Right. That's awful.
Absolutely awful. Definitely. And so I'm getting a question from Seamus saying, how did Caitlin start writing? So what inspired you to write? I mean, we've talked about the beginning of your career as a journalist and what motivated you to kind of go into independent journalism. But what Seamus is getting at is what, you know, first motivated you to actually write as a talent and a skill set?
Oh, right. My family's a journalism family, and so we were all expected to write. So yeah, I you know, from when I was 12 or something, I used to help my dad with he would write the children's pages of a Puffin magazine, and I would help him write that. So yeah, I've always written, and I've always wanted to write what I'm writing right now. It's been you know, you just haven't had the opportunity. Like, the internet has opened up the opportunity for so many of us to get down and dirty and actually you know, say the things that we are seeing and say them unequivocally without any apologies. And yeah, so it really was the birth of the internet that I felt like that I was able to write what I really wanted to write and not write for people, which is, I think, a very important distinction.
Well, I think that answers that question beautifully. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm checking now again for chat to see if anybody has asked any more questions. Guys, this is like last call. If you have any questions for Caitlin, then write them right now in chat so that I can ask them. Because as I've said before in this whole stream, you know, I want to almost like collaborate with you all and have you participate in this stream, in this vigil, and get your questions answered of all of our panelists if that's possible. So I'm seeing some comments on how wonderful they think Caitlin is and how wonderful they think the whole vigil is. I'm not seeing any more questions. So Caitlin, what, I guess as a final thought, what do you see moving forward for Julian Assange? What do you see in the future of this situation? I'm not asking you to be falsely hopeful or, you know, deeply pessimistic, but what do you see in the next couple of months in this situation?
Well, I don't think that we can go back to sleep. You know, I don't think that we can unsee the things that we've seen, that WikiLeaks have shown us, but also that the persecution of Julian Assange has shown us. And I think that, you know, as we move forward and try to get him out of there, we'll see more and more things that will shock and terrify us and embolden us to go further. So I am hopeful. I do think that the only way that this can, you know, that it can't go back in the box. This rabbit cannot go back in the box. We've seen it, and there's no way that there's, you know, we are too many. There is a tipping point. There are too many of us now. We cannot be silenced. And I think that his liberation will be one way or another. But yeah, we need to commit totally to hitting all the way through. Don't let the learned hopelessness get to you. It's or the psyops or whatever. We really need to you know, to place our feet and to make this happen and stop believing all the bullshit that's around there. You know, the stories about where he's in Switzerland. Don't worry about him. He's in Switzerland. Like, that's no. Come on, no.
It's so harmful.
Yeah, so harmful. And when his lawyers and his mum and everyone, and you know, the president of Ecuador all are saying, yeah, no, he's definitely in the embassy. Like, come on, there's no need to muddy the waters that way and to bring us back into inertia, into sleepiness.
Yeah, as soon as we posted the live links of the stream yesterday, the first response I saw from somebody was, "Oh, don't worry, he's not there. There's no need for this." And I didn't know if it was somebody who's misinformed or a troll, but in either case, it doesn't matter because it's just very, very damaging to the support that has to grow for WikiLeaks at this time.
Right.
So
yeah. Well, yeah, and it's not just the people who fervently believe that. It's people who are like, you know, we're all busy with our lives. We don't have time to commit to, you know, all these things. You know, we need to. We only have so much energy, and there's only so many things that we can commit to. And so, someone who might be like thinking about, you know, writing a letter or something about Assange, if they see a comment like that, then they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't even know. I'm confused. Oh, well, I'll just leave it. I'll just leave it and see how it goes." When we need everyone's hands to be on deck right now. It's been 2 months. It's over 60 days, you know, he's being silenced. And even, you know, in terms of his health, his physical health, that's extremely dangerous. His mental health as well. So
absolutely.
I think
go on with that thought. I don't want to cut you off on that thought at all. Please go ahead.
Oh no, I just think it's important that, like, you know, we stop telling lies or spreading lies. You know, make sure that what you're saying has some basis in reality. That there are, you know, that there are actions that you can point to that are real, that that show what you're saying. You know, try and verify things as much as you can, and then just use the truth. Like, even if it might feel more comfortable to think that, oh, maybe he's okay, maybe Trump saves him or whatever. Like, no, come on. We've got to deal with reality here, and we've got to deal with the facts that are at hand. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That is a really great sentiment to leave it on, because that's exactly what WikiLeaks does, is it gives us just nothing but the facts. So, but thank you so much, Caitlin, for being with us and spending your time with us and speaking with us about Julian Assange WikiLeaks and about your journalism and the way in which WikiLeaks has sort of impacted your journalism as well. So thank you so much for spending that time with us. I know that I appreciate it. I know our audience appreciates it, because they are just doing nothing but praising you and your work, and WikiLeaks, of course, in chat. So thank you so much on behalf of all the viewers for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for putting it on, and thank you for just being an amazing host. You and Susie have done such a great job of putting this together. It's really been fantastic. Like I said, it's been a real community effort, and I think it's had a lot of knock-on effects that will be very good for us in the future too.
I think it's just really important not to, and I know a lot of people mentioned this during the vigil, it's just so important not to let this story die. And I think that the concept of this moving forward, if it has to, if Assange remains gagged, so that this isn't like a one and done event, I think that is a crucial aspect of this. But
right, yeah, well, yeah. Let's hope we never have to have a vigil before, though.
Exactly. Let's hope that this is the last vigil we have to have for Julian to be free. In any case, I know that your schedule is very busy, so I will let you go. And thank you again for joining us. And I know that if we have another vigil, that we'll see you again next time on that if we have to. So,
okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.